everyone, and today we're back into another top 5, and we're going to be talking about the top 5 most controversial Loomians in all of Loomian Legacy. These are Loomians which are extremely controversial to talk about. These are either Loomians which are really good, which I think are bad, or Loomians that a lot of people think are bad, but I think are good. With that out of the way, let's head on to this list. Number 5 onto this list is going to be Heber. Heber is a very controversial Loomian to talk about. On one hand, you have a Loomian which has an amazing offensive typing, amazing stats, while also having a really good move pool. I mean, it has Icicle Traps, it has Ice Hammer Stab, it has Yeti's Wrath, it has Priority. There is a lot to praise about Heber. But Heber is let down by its super low speed stat of 45. And when there are other Loomians like Helvantic and Barbadger added in the game, a lot of people don't really consider Heber a threat anymore. Although, with that being the case, its offensive typing and its really good bulk makes Heber really good. I've had Heber time and time again do extremely good work just because of that bulk. I see Heber as a very good Loomian for bulky offensive teams. So the problem is that a lot of people would just rather use Barbadger and Helvantic as their wall breaker instead. Even though Heber is bulky and hits pretty hard, it doesn't hit as hard as Helvantic and Barbadger, and it's not as fast as it. Despite Heber being very good in my opinion, a lot of people don't like Heber as much, and that's why Heber is number 5 on this list. Number 4 onto this list is going to be Infernus. Infernus could be the best fossil, but it also isn't at the same time. There are so many fire types in the game, and every single fire type outclasses Infernus in something. Eruptodon has better coverage. Pyrolin has better range bulk. Pyrolin has Rejuvenate. Vocaloa has Brawn Boost setup. While Infernus does hit hard, while it does have good range bulk, and while it does have a healing move, it doesn't excel at anything, which is really unfortunate because Infernus is really good. You could say that it is faster than all the ranged fire types, which it is good, but the problem is that Vocaloa is faster, and it's just, Infernus gets outclassed by pretty much every fire type. And it's not even Infernus' fault. It was going to get good when Levitate came out, but Levitate's not coming out anymore. So Infernus has suffered for it. It has gotten some new moves like Mud Spatter and Jetstream, but even then, it's not enough to make Infernus better. And the thing that sucks is, every time I use Infernus, it does really good. It actually is a pretty solid fossil, and I would even consider a top 3 fossil. But since it gets outclassed by every fire type, why wouldn't you use those fire types instead? That's what makes Infernus so controversial, and that's why it's number 4 on this list. Number 3 onto this list is going to be Terra Claw. And I don't think it's Terra Claw itself that is controversial. I think it's the Rejuvenate mindset which is controversial. Tanks in Loomian Legacy needs the heal health back. That's the only way you can reliably tank hits. And unfortunately, Terra Claw does not have Rejuvenate. Even though it has Parasitize to heal, even though it has amazing coverage and an extremely high range defense stat, even a very solid melee attack stat on top of that, a lot of people think Terra Claw is unviable and a really bad Loomian to use. Even though on this channel, time and time again, Terra Claw absolutely destroys a lot of teams. And yes, it can't hit Obsidragon, yes, it can't hit Tundril, I don't care. Time and time again, I had Terra Claw swap into a lot of range attackers and live. It lived Wintrix hits. It lived Dragodyne hits. It's lived multiple hits from a lot of different Loomians. It even walls Metronet. It walls to Cliffs. There's a lot of Loomians Terra Claw can beat. But since it doesn't have Rejuvenate, a lot of people are like, this tank doesn't have Rejuvenate, it stinks. That's the reason why Terra Claw is very controversial. And honestly, every tank in Loomian Legacy that doesn't have Rejuvenate is under that controversy because it doesn't have Rejuvenate, because of the Rejuvenate mindset. That's why Terra Claw is number 3 on the list. Number 2 onto the list is going to be Protagon. On one hand, you have a very solid roamer with some amazing coverage that can hit a lot of different Loomians. On the other hand, you have the most exploited Loomian in Loomian Legacy. With its ability Analyze, If your range defense is higher than your melee, you will only get a melee attack increase. The problem is that Protagon's melee attack isn't high enough, and it doesn't have any good melee moves besides Steel Crusher. It doesn't even have the best coverage, so you really need that range attack increase to hit hard. Because without that range attack increase, you do not hit hard enough with Protagon. You can't even one-shot Loomians with super effective moves. On the other hand, though, you have a Loomian that is a devastating late-game sweeper and can be very dangerous. I think with a different coverage move or another Analyze user, I think Protagon can be good. If Protagon got like Shrewd Blast, if Protagon had another Analyze user that would require its melee attack to be increased instead of its range, I think Protagon would be way better. But the problem is that it's so exploited. Every Loomian is designed so Protagon gets a melee attack increase, and when it gets a melee attack increase, it cannot be utilized to its fullest potential, and that's why Protagon's controversial. On one hand, it's a very powerful roamer, when on the other hand, it's not powerful at all, and you would rather use Zulong or Hunder or any other late-game cleaner. And that's why Protagon is number 2 on this list. It's very controversial indeed. Honorable mentions on this list, and honorable mention number 1 is Wrestling. Ace Wrestling with 130 melee attack hits extremely hard. But the problem is that its typing isn't that good. Pure Brawler with only fire coverage isn't the greatest. It actually cannot hit a lot of Loomians, and that's why Wrestling's controversial. Despite hitting hard, its coverage isn't good enough, and that's why it's an honorable mention on this list. Honorable mention number 2 is Zulong, and this is before it got Fire Breath. But before it got Fire Breath, I saw Zulong as a very threatening Loomian, one of the most threatening Loomians in the game. Well, on the other hand, it's not very threatening at all, and it's the worst starter in Loomian Legacy. It's a very split title, although ever since they got Fire Breath, it's became really good again, so that's why it's only an honorable mention. Number 1 on the list, and it's going to be Carolyn. Carolyn is by far the most controversial Loomian in all of Loomian Legacy. This thing has 137 melee attack, with Hasty that can increase its melee attack. And it has Ancient, Fire, and Brawler. Some of the best coverage in the entire game. The problem with Carolyn is, if you can't hit the opposing Loomian, what is the point of the 137 melee attack? But, if it hits his attacks, Carolyn is a devastating wall breaker that can destroy any Loomian in the game. That's why Carolyn is the most controversial Loomian in all of Loomian Legacy. It's because of that small chance of missing. It's not even that small. I think it's like 20%. But if it misses its attack, there is no reason to use Carolyn. That's the problem. If it can miss, there's no point in using it when you can use another wall breaker like Helvantic, Barbadger, Dragodyne that doesn't miss their attacks that often. You can even use setup sweepers. So using Carolyn is just all of a sudden not a good option, all because it has a chance to miss. But if this thing doesn't miss, it's one of the best wall breakers in the game, and that's why Carolyn is the most controversial Loomian in all of Loomian Legacy. And here it is, Carolyn, the most controversial Loomian in all of Loomian Legacy. I hope you guys enjoyed this list. If there's some other controversial Loomians that I left out of the list, tell me in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was definitely a very interesting top 5 to make. And I will see y'all all later. Bye-bye!